witch is a bad thing. That's the only kind of witch that there is.
Curú in a lei gur siad chur málartaí ar ghaoinní. Gur siad abal tá alcas íonú. Gur siad githe linneamh mua bhreithe.
Curú in a lei gur siad a deangháil leis an diabhal.
Bhí an diabhal istí I gorp na man.
To be accused of witchcraft was terrible.
Má raibhann tú duine bháin, aniu nó siad sin trúr, anim nó in trúr sin trúr eile, agus sin witch panic ceart.
They were usually strangled and then they were burnt.
Bhí ahan bhean I mhaol.
Tá míon seo na sin sciala inse duid. Faoin dóid ar corú le na mílte agus na mílte duine. Mar éon chuid is smó acu, go raibh siad a bart leis an diabhal agus corú an buaidh siad mar witches. A an seo an éireann ba rud neu hatianta a maithas ama a bhí sa tríal witches loga. A bhí lona harí na halaban ag teart go tuisgurt na héireann ag tuairt an chruideamh san asarlaí at lá, ar ó iarhhairtí uafasa aige, tá achtar ban agus tá athrahain. Agus tóir ar witches Islandmagee arú, go bra.
Tá muid a caintear seachtaíoch chineag agus níl sin bhád inné na tréalatha I bhí an Albain.
Harla céra sríal in ein na Gaelic in Dhearan, agus ga ceanna acu bunathe na pillory tháinig isteach, agus an casas cailliú le go gealaí harla sin ar an Uilean seo.
Sin tríal is mó harla sa tír nó tríal Islandmagee. Agus ba éitir leith Islandmagee anas gur leithin is bhíon ní Uileanna bhíon. Ba pobl presbytéireach a bheith nach bonus an phobal in sin. Presbytéirí bhíon tú a hanig is Albain.
They are part of the settlement that happens in the 17th century, where you have the local Irish population being thrown off their lands and new communities coming in, but also, obviously, new religions coming into Ireland.
Ba Presbytery agus bíon neamh san neol idir na Presbytery agus na Catholic. Bhí siad a teartas dead a haimh go raibh talún séir gan dadaí ar fáil go raibh deis acu a hacht agus saoil uair a bhunú daofa héin.
Cartar tús le scial witches Islandmagee I da winter haltridge. Éitir hasí tarlahaintí áisteatha, I chuiriste ar chuaigneas as ar cúneas na héite.
Tá muid lé le teilech minister agus le ban dar bhainneam Anne Hartridge. Agus bhí sé sa pósta ar minister presbytéireach John Hartridge. Agus rinneadh baintre daoithe.
Old Mrs. Hartridge, she's an elderly woman. She's staying with her son in the minister's house. And what starts to happen is a whole load of demonic episodes.
Caiú clocha agus caiú PC móna I dro na funiugas ar mar sin a chanig rinse acu isteach sa siomra in a ró an Haltridge an Olí.
Chaisí daineacht a bhil go bhainéadaí ar leabaí ar sin loir agus runniú sin trí ihe is a cheanna cheile. agus an tríú ihe choú in séadach a grú corp an leabhaí.
Things opening and shutting by unseen hands. Things moving about the house. Demonic presences crawling over her body. It's really horrifying stuff.
Agus an sin bhí an bhainteach na sé, sa seamar a sé, agus bhí sí leo leor searmantaí. Agus nar a chuir sí chuirtú an leor sin a rééis ní hoca le heachtar.
Bhí searmhainte acu fásta Margaret Spears a bhí learnig sa scéal seo. Mar a tharla bhí Margaret Spears a gciondan na siomraí agus breisiú fanneog a tiomra agus saithú isteach an leor sin. Nuair dunk sí amach in naneog, conaic siad bugalóga dois a hard. Agus dír sé ar an bhuacail sin ó bhfuil leo na scríomh agatsa agus dragar sé tá. Cúirtú sin a dúirt Margaret Spears leis. Bhuain an jogal mise, leo agus scríomh.
Agus bhí se na hasún sin agus cléomh aige, agus é ag tochaid uaidh, agus dúir se go mó daine sa seo san uaidh sin gan bhfuil. Agus naithe sin, bhthaigh banatí an bhaintre, bhthaigh se piantaí, miltnach an a drum mar bhó daine ag sa hauscin an a drum agus go gearan na dhééis sin for sí buas.
And it's at this point that Mary Dunbar enters. So basically, in a time of mourning, when the matriarch has died, she is there in this kind of Presbyterian household.
Dyna a bhí ina dhéag organ sin. Beidir ochna ina déag díos nó mar sin. Agus tháinig sé aad leis an teach sin do fannachtáin agus caidiú thuairt den teaghlach sin. Ní raibh sé an le tamil a couple an mar sin na tháinig téamaí marhfuil ar is rom an téamaí san í agus thosaí sé bringlóidí. Agus dúir sé go rudaí aisteach ar siúil.
Mary Dunbar starts to become demonically possessed, and she starts going through a range of demonic possession symptoms. Unable to speak or going into catatonic fits. But then it becomes, you know, aversion to the Bible or the spoken word when the minister comes in. Local gentry come in and try to hold her down, try to help her. And when she's moved to Larne, she levitates. It becomes like a cause célèbre. There's so many people coming to watch this spectacle. Because actually, what are you seeing this person cavorting about in fits? You're seeing the devil in motion. You're seeing spiritual essences in a human body. Sometimes these demonic possession cases in the stricter households where behaviour is restricted and controlled, you're more likely to get demonically possessed people. Because it's a way to stretch and challenge authority, whether that's age authority of the hierarchy of the women or just behave in ways that they wouldn't ordinarily get away with.
Is toch na rud a bí an andaí agus beidir seans ó andaí go am na phobal. Agus í héana chur chun cin na más go phobal ar gáil amháin ar gáil eile.
For example, Mary Dunbar, in this clerical household, everybody's coming in to see her. She's a centre of attention. Young, eligible men are cavorting in a bed, holding her down while she fits. You can see the sexualised nature of her. An unregulated encounter in a highly regulated environment.
Nes ba seo ban águr ó éideatha sarthaí, agus de réir na gantuise de go léir a raniu ag na tréalatha bhí sí dáil. agus bhí álas waithí an bhíbla. Agus gach seans ma bhí sí san aic sin gur léisi beidir na contas tréal Salem mar hampla. No, tá an chud coslachtaí idir an cur sí sa dhéanann sí ar a rud a harlad i héin agus na rud a harlad an na Cailíní an Salem.
Agus is dó go gur tháinig an tríú glúin ón Alban leis na scéalta sin. Agus bhí sé rólas acu gurú na caileacha an acu gurú sé bio agus a rubber ar san na deabhal.
There's set numbers of symptoms that you can copy. They become the leading ladies in a script that they are writing in front of an audience.
We she, Mary Dunbar, gur trúrbán a hannig cí am roglaj, tab she, agus gur sin a bechanti gro she in sa dáir ó she, agus bhí sí ábalta cur síos a hurt ar a trúrbán. Ach dar a chéile, bhédín trúrbán go áturbán, agus bhí sí ábalta cur síos crinn bacht gonta a hurt ar an áchtar bán.
Tá sí na mrá seo a ciapú, cé na roisí a bheiceil. Thuca lethe cur síos omlána dhéanú ar na mrá seo sa dóigur féidir iad a haint, agus iad a thuirt a scór na cuairse.
Well, reoact in seo in na Gaelic sin cúig ochta sé.
It was one of the worst things that you could be accused of. If you were found guilty, it would either lead to execution or excommunication, which in some cases could be just as bad, as it meant being cut off from the church, cut off from everything, really.
Mary Dunbar, she picks them out from lineups. 8 women, having said she's never seen them before. When she's describing these women to the Justice of the Peace or the constables, she is very much pointing out that they're dishevelled. But she's also pains to point out that they drink wine. Good Presbyterian women do not drink alcohol. One of them smokes. They resist arrest. They swear.
Because Protestants were all about that you were supposed to be, fine, upstanding citizen. You weren't supposed to be doing anything morally questionable.
Bhí beirteacha a ró rianta a bhálagaí ar a agus den eile fásta a duna den naoine a gceist a heit sé sa tinian an rúise óg agus bhí colm granta ar a haidh fásta mar gheallar sin. Janet Liston agus Elizabeth Sarah-Bawaki iad. Íonta forrasta a hansear nó í ón phobal. And sin Kate McCalmont. Dúra go raibh droch clú ar Kate McCalmont agus beidir go raibh buncheicí le malachtaí a thuirt ar a gcine agsúil na Rómar sin fásta. Janet Latimer fásta, dúra gur strípaí nó droch clú go cinnalinseachtarí fásta.
Contrasting this with the believable witness, and the believable witness is Mary Dunbar, educated Presbyterian, a good woman, this idea of a good woman. And these women are not. They're believable witches. That's the type of women that join the devil.
Bhí an tríal ba bhó witches is start na héireann ar siúl a bubble bug presbytera Islandmagee. Éitir thuaisí ban whistle ág dar bainne Mary Dunbar, achtar ban as asar líocht.
It's a very feminine thing, both in who are accused, but also who do the accusing. It's one woman bewitching or cursing another woman. And once the witches are accused, the patriarchal structure begins, and you have then the judges, who are always men.
The Islandmagee women were all relatively poor. Some of them had diabolic appearances. And what does that mean? It means they didn't fit the male standards of beauty. Now, the witnesses were the cream of North Antrim society, all ranged against these women. It's happening at a time when prosecutions elsewhere in Europe are declining. So it's in a period of judicial scepticism. They go to the women, they test them on their biblical knowledge.
Cwricysnir rwysyd crefa, rwysyd nwyfa, rwsaku ar na hair tarniaw, cwhaidir lidir na ar o cymniagu, rwysyd sesta gyr yn y chaila, caetr gysydd, rwysyd publi, gypriwydja, gwrn y cysni siol I gilyr ar yn Arturban.
They also bring them in an almost an identity parade in front of Mary Dunbar. Because in demonic possession cases, and you get this in England as well, they even do it in open court sometimes, they bring them in to see if our symptoms get worse. And they do.
Fi dini o'n a hasi da Mary Dunbar, dini fi sesta finish a hort, ni ro dini bi yn a hasu don art ban a sgôr y cwrch.
Rinstan y dyn I ddi gest, a bantraca ontu, sin rhaid ala fasta, ni ro dyn I byd leid y cosant.
The women that were accused, they don't admit, they never admit, they never confess. They plead not guilty in court. They fought it with everything they had, and what they had was limited. But they gave it everything.
Suggeru hwysig Mary Dunbar actor ban. A si a char ffrireacht mas yn charm cart seo.
Reoccur en trailer sin trail lei a bhí a gceist. Agus sin tháinig téamela Mary. Agus díri sí balú. Agus níor lór sí a scarabí. Ní ró sí an mar inné a scarabí ag a trail.
Chonalú an trial a garig ergus, agus ba ácaid allmhórí sa phobal. Thar se ardan fáil fásta da strahaltí chuachtatha, politialatha agus religionatha. Agus hocalat a ré gur na hochtar ban a bhí cúise an núsaid mar a bheith fihilíní chláir politiachta.
In this case, you've got two judges. You've got Anthony Upton, and the other side is McCartney. And they're both leading judges. One is a Tory and one is a Whig, so they're different political spectrums. And in Ireland and England at that time, political feeling between the two ideologies and political parties is running high. Justice Upton, he says that there is no proof that these images that are in Mary Dunbar's head are placed there by the devil. Because most of the evidence is this spectral evidence. She is the only one that sees them attacking her. Both judges in their summing up speeches direct the jury in different ways. Upton directs them to acquit them, and McCartney directs them to find them guilty. And the jury go with McCartney. They were found guilty, but they weren't found guilty of old Mrs. Haltridge's murder. If it would have been a capital case. The 8 Islandmagee witches are only ever prosecuted and convicted of the possession, the harm on Mary Dunbar. Otherwise, it would have been a mass execution.
Hannig sin recóir éiteach faoi ar a hir hall, iad the curse of frisin, go cion lei is blian. Agus céire chóirte chóirt na pillory an carach agus lán éanaí.
Agus groarú hart is scór a pobl Ciril sa bhliain a bíalid. Agus go cad ag an pobl a gáit na hart, agus gas na céile a chahuarú, a bheitha chahuarú, chlóchailú a chahuarú. Agus chailban den am ré a súil in cin den ácadí seo. Bhín locht féhanna dar nói go cruúa lei sin.
Bagarú an punas a fuair na mar seo, agus cé gur thug siad a maithe lá, lean droch lú na tríala agus líhaintí na hasarlaíochta iad ar fá a síl. Mar sin hain, bhí cinniúint Mary Dunbar fós an Andy.
A few weeks after the trial, Mary Dunbar died. Just before that, she accused William Seller, who is a husband and father to two of the accused witches, of continuing on where the witches left off, attacking her and making her ill, you know. So William Seller, we know, was convicted under the 1586 Witchcraft Act. And the fact is, because Mary Dunbar died, it would have become a capital crime and he would have been executed for killing Mary Dunbar.
Overall, about 80% of the witches executed in Europe were women, 20% men. So we have to think both about that really large female majority and about the fact that it's not 100%.
Men can be witches, but they're seen as weak men being led astray by women.
In a certain sense, they can be seen as bad men because if their family members, like William Sellers, become witches, they have not been doing their job as the head of a household to make sure that they haven't fallen into the clutches of the devil.
Ní bhhain gur bé Islandmagee an tríal witches ba bhóinéirin, a bé an ceandearna fásta. Tra ar ó géir lenuintí witches teartún jedi sa Europe sa jeú hir hall. Don chuide smó tá dearama deanta ar an Arctur ban agus an ahra bhain a cúisiú.
The witch trials are still going on in Scotland in a big way till about 1660s. Then we start to see them dropping off. There's no need to persecute them anymore. There's no appetite for it anymore. Changes in the law, especially around evidence.
Do people stop executing witches because they stop believing in witches? On the whole, the answer to that is mainly no. They stop executing witches because they stop being convinced that they can identify witches in the courts. The evidence in any particular case, it's very hard to make it stand up. So much of the evidence has to be extracted under torture.
With a crime like witchcraft, it's very difficult to provide physical evidence for this crime because it's a largely invisible crime. And when you get crimes that are difficult to find evidence for, they tend to not be treated as seriously.
There are also people who think that it's a cheat and a fraud and a delusion.
Why the trials specifically die out is a different question to did witch beliefs die out, because they didn't really die out. They take much longer to fall out of people's consciousness, you know, a good 100 years or more.
The rare mar a hog na mre iwa den witch goran the law, ista sa chid ish alle. Lannen schiel na hasarliakte a rei.